Federal workers, researchers, and private citizens have until January 31st to submit feedback about the president's management agenda. The Office of Management and Budget, OMB, has released a draft learning agenda to identify ways to coordinate implementation of President Biden's management goals. Robert Shea is former associate director at OMB. He's currently at Grant Thornton. Robert, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mimi.
So this is the first time OMB has released a draft learning agenda. What is it and what's the goal?
So, learning agendas are designed to articulate the big questions that agencies have for helping them achieve their mission. And agencies are putting those together. They're going to be released later in the spring. OMB is not obligated to do the same thing, but they took it upon themselves, since they're asking the rest of government to do it, to put out there the big questions they think could help them better implement the management priorities of the Biden administration.
Well, that management budget really has some lofty goals. So how does this learning agenda really turn those goals into something more practical?
Well, it's a draft, so they're eliciting comment from the community. That's why it's so great you're talking about this. Your audience is invited to review it at performance.gov, give OMB ideas about how to improve it. But right now it asks, how can we, what are the best practices? What do we know? What does the research tell us about the best ways to recruit, retain, and keep engaged a diverse workforce? What are the best practices in enhancing customer experience so we remove barriers to access to government benefits and programs? How can we improve equity? What programs are best to ensure that the government's programs are reaching its intended beneficiaries, especially when we're having a hard time reaching traditionally underserved communities? So those are sort of the big practical questions that they're trying to get answers to.
And so let's go through some of those. You mentioned strengthening the federal workforce. What's in the draft about that, and what might be missing?
Well, the easy thing about a learning agenda is that it poses the big questions. Recruitment, retention, engagement have been a consistent challenge for the government. And so they're asking the community not only what are the right questions to ask in this context, but let's marshal our resources and research around things that can actually tackle this long-standing, seemingly intractable challenge.
Another piece of the learning agenda talks about building trust in the government, which has been low lately, through service delivery and improving that service delivery. What's in the agenda about that, and what gaps might there be?
Yeah, it's a lofty thing to set a target to strengthen trust in government because, as you know, it's been on the decline for decades. And one of the best ways we can improve trust in government is, number one, to measure it. So the learning agenda asks, what's the right way to measure trust in government? And how can we improve the service we provide to citizens in a way that strengthens that moves the needle? And so you and I engage the federal government programs on a regular basis. We know that it's not always the most pleasant experience. So enhancing that, and one of the things the President's management agenda does in the customer experience context is it wants to look at your life events from birth to death and make sure that when you interact with the government, you don't have to enter the same information more than once, that the way the government is engaging you is as seamless as possible. These are difficult times generally in people's lives, and the government wants to make it easier to interact with it where citizens have to.
Who is actually going to be responding to this? I mean, I know it's supposed to be everybody, but really, who is going to respond?
That's a really good question. There are, of course, agencies that have research in these spaces. The private sector, of course, is selling services, so they know what experience seem to work on the ground. But there are public policy schools across the country churning out kids to enter into public service. They make up things to do research on. To me, this is an excellent opportunity for those research institutions to focus their teaching their kids research methods on questions that really the government wants answers to the most. So that's what I'm hoping.
Do you think this will be useful in the end?
I hope so. I'm interested in seeing the learning agendas that agencies are going to publish this spring to see what common challenges span government. You know, you hear every day more than most, Mimi, what the big challenges are facing government. If we can combine resources to find what really works in solving those challenges, that could really be a game changer.
All right. Well, Robert, thanks very much for coming in. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.